Hello and welcome to the 51st edition of the Sports Resort. This is your home for all things sports. I'm your host, Gannon Cornley, with my main man, Toby Todd, right here. And we have a special episode in store for you guys today. I'm very excited. The NFL season, week one, is basically now completed as we have just one more game with Monday Night Football coming up this week. You see what I got on my boy Lamar Jackson going up against the Las Vegas Raiders tonight. So we will see those two teams in action. But other than that, all of week one recap right here you'll listen to. We'll get you caught up with what's going on with baseball, as there are some new teams now that have entered into the wild card race. Some are already into the wild card themselves. So we'll get you caught up on all of that. Another wild weekend with college football, as we had some top teams take a fat L, multiple teams taking some very unexpected L's. So we'll get you caught up on all of that. Some tennis to get into as well. So definitely stay tuned. Before we get started with 51, we had a night. I thought we had one of our best episodes last week with episode 50. Anything you got before we get going on 51?
It's good to have the NFL back. What a weekend it was for us here in our hometown of Kansas City. But for pretty much our entire group outside of Kansas City, a horrible week. It can't get worse next week.
Monte, I guess.
Monte had a good week, and that's what makes it horrible for the rest of us, that he's the only one that gets to celebrate. But it cannot get worse than this.
No.
So next week will be better for all of our teams. Hopefully we'll be even better for Kansas City, as that was stressful, very stressful. But it's just good to have NFL Sundays back. And sensational. I got the red zone this year. 7 hours of commercial-free football is going to be fantastic on days that I'm not working. So,
yeah, I hear you. It was great just to see all the games in action, see a couple of rookie quarterbacks get underway, rookies just in general able to play, some new faces in new places. So, yeah, no, I'm very happy that the NFL is back. I've been looking forward to it. As you said earlier, my team, our teams as a whole, just not good. So it was a rough week one. But you know what? I'm still happy that football's here. So we'll I'll just ride that wave there. But before we get into some NFL action, we do have to start with our first segment titled "What Is You Doing?" Highlighting some of the biggest idiots out here in the world of sports. People always are out there doing too much, need to stop. I think I went first last week, so I'll let you go ahead first this time.
all right, I'm going to take a little sidestep from football. I'm going to go to Saturday night in the boxing ring. It was UFC legends, former boxing legends. They put on an event. That's what boxing is now. It's celebrity boxing events that they want you to pay a bunch of money for. The good, I guess this will be the good, but also what is she doing? Anderson Silva viciously KO'd Tito Ortiz in just 81 seconds. So Tito Ortiz, you obviously get a what is you doing. You lasted 81 seconds, which I believe is less than Askren lasted against Jake Paul. And clearly he did not train. I get that Anderson Silva is a completely different beast. But 81 seconds, my man. Give the viewers their money back. But the big one is Vitor Belfort, UFC legend, KO'd Evander Holyfield. And it doesn't go to Evander Holyfield entirely, but a lot of this is going to go to the promotion that allowed him to fight after he was medically banned from boxing by the state commission, by the boxing commission in New Jersey. They allowed him and his old bones to come out of retirement, to come fight a real boxing match. And of course, he looked like he should not have been in the ring at all. There was articles posted about it. This was too far for celebrity boxing, and I agree. He definitely should not have been in the ring. I don't know what we're going to do next. We're going to try to bring 80-year-old undefeated boxers back from their Olympic days, rehash it as like USA versus Cuba Boxing Day with the 80-year-olds. Who knows? Who knows where it'll end? But they get my what is you doing because of the because I give myself what is you doing there. But they get my what is you doing because they're really just putting elderly lives in danger here. And Tito Ortiz could have done something to stop it. I don't think Holyfield had the capacity to do something to stop it. So boxing needs to stop it. Let the big guns fight. If for Christ's sakes, get Fury and Joshua to fight right away. This was booked. I know we had Wilder. He's got to fight still. Just get some real boxers fighting again, please, because it's getting dangerous for folks out there.
It's painful. And at this rate, this is how we're going to decide the next presidential election. It's just throw them in the ring. Bunch of old men out here.
Now that I would watch, though.
That would be cool.
Some of them need a good punch to the face.
Or
a nice pile driver to the face.
All of them as far as I'm concerned. But, yeah, I agree. That would be pretty entertaining. But, yeah, I don't know what boxing's going to do from here. It's not working out for them. The biggest thing in the sport right now is Jake Paul, and that's just
unfortunate.
That's just so ridiculous. He's out here beating people who don't even actually box. He's barely a professional boxer, if that's what you want to call him, himself. And he's the biggest face in the sport right now. So, yeah, I know. I totally agree. But what is you doing? Now, look. If you guys remember, just a couple weeks ago, I put Maryland on blast for their social media page trying to go out and about and go after West Virginia. Because it's like, Maryland, you guys will be lucky to win 7 games this year. And I'm being generous. So I felt that they were pretty disingenuous towards West Virginia for flaming them on social media. Now, my What Is You Doing This Week goes out to the Los Angeles Chargers social media team. Now, look, I do think they're a little bit further along than Maryland. I actually think the Chargers could make a playoff run. But as of right now, they've done nothing to deserve any type of incredible praise. In fact, they barely beat their team after their starting quarterback got hurt. And they felt the need to go to social media on their Twitter page and use Sesame Street to help them educate Washington fans on what is the letter of the day, which apparently was an L after their victory in Washington. Listen, it's hilarious, it's funny, but I just don't understand. Chargers, you guys won by 4 points against a backup quarterback. You should be happy that you got out of there with the win to begin with. Why are we feeling the need to flame them? There's no rivalry in any way. You guys are on 2 complete opposite coasts. You play once probably every 5 years. I don't even understand what's the point of going after Washington and ending their lives there, but that was mad disrespectful. So what is you doing to whoever's running the Twitter page for the Los Angeles Chargers? Because for one, it was madly creative, but I don't know why you had to use Sesame Street to help the Washington football fans with the letter of the day. Got to be better.
I mean, I thought that one was pretty funny. Because I looked into it. Maryland, it's funny now that I look into it because Maryland and West Virginia fans actually don't like each other. And I don't know what the Chargers are attempting to do, if they're trying to drum up some rivalry, some fans with the social media team, but completely out of left field. Just hilarious. For a second, I thought you were about to call out Carolina for their animatronic panther.
Oh.
Their augmented reality panther that ate the Jets flag on the field.
Yeah, that was actually kind of cool. I
thought it was cool.
Yeah.
But what is you doing for people who thought it was a real panther in the stadium?
Yeah, I don't know what they were doing there. You could even see them the Panthers stepping on the players on the field. That's when I was just like, wait a minute, what's going on? Because I thought it was kind of cool. He jumped around the stadium. Then he ate the Jets flag or, tore it up or whatever. And then you see him leap on the field, and I see the punters out there warming up. He's just stepping all over them. I was like, wait a minute. What did I miss here? So that's when I was like, wait a minute, what? But overall, I thought that was actually pretty cool.
I did as well.
Yeah.
I still don't know how they do it, but I hope they do it for every team that plays there.
Yeah. I wonder what Robbie Anderson thinks about it, because we all know he's not very fond of their mascot. Remember back to last year when he was not a fan of Sir Purr, the name of their mascot.
Yeah, I don't know why he thought it was
a bear. He thought it a bear. You don't know what the team you play for? It's literally the name. Like, I can see if the Chiefs, you were wondering like why is it Casey Wolf, but even then, like that still kind of goes hand in hand. You are literally the Panthers. Yeah, I don't know, but anyways, yeah. No, I thought that was pretty cool, but yeah, what are you doing going out to the Chargers? Because I just don't understand. And then the entire sport of boxing for Toby, because this has got to stop. Having these old men out here just putting them, knocking in whatever brains they have left, they're getting really put out of their sense now. So need to stop that. But we will transition now over into the NFL after a huge week to get started off. Obviously, week one is some of the wildest things ever because you have fans that are already ready just to tarnish this season, cancel it over. They're already ready for the draft. Even though we just had the draft like 3 months ago. They're already ready for next year's draft. And then you have other teams that win week one, and they're already thinking they won the Super Bowl. So week one's always a huge thing. The biggest thing, I think, in my personal opinion, that says the most about a team is how they respond in week two, whether you got a big win or you took a big loss. And there were a lot of big losses for a lot of teams. We're just going to start off with it. It all, of course, started off on Thursday night with the Dallas Cowboys traveling to the defending champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after what was an insane game, easily, in my opinion, the best game of the week, which was the first game of the week, with Tampa Bay winning that game 31-29 after Brady had an incredible performance along with Antonio Brown, Gronk, and Chris Godwin. Dak looked very impressive in his return. From his injury, throwing for multiple touchdowns, getting in sync with Amari Cooper, despite having some players missing from his offensive line. So that was easily the best game of the week to me. Just to kind of get you caught up on some of the biggest highlights from Sunday, Jalen Hurts taking his team out there after they announced that he would be the starter, got a victory, a 32-6 win over the Atlanta Falcons, putting up – Flash, get out of the field. Down. Okay. All right, here we go. Putting up a dominating performance on defense, for sure. We had the Pittsburgh Steelers going into Buffalo, shocking the world there after their end of the season woes last year, coming in, starting off hot, beating the Buffalo Bills 23-16. After stifling Josh Allen, and that would look to be a pretty impressive offense in the offseason. We had the San Francisco 49ers beating up on the Detroit Lions 41-33. Originally, that game got way out of hand. I believe at one point it was, 38-10? And in the blink of an eye, it was 41-33 with the Lions driving. Unfortunately, Jared Goff unable to put the ball in the end zone to send that game to a possible overtime. But you got to like the will of the Lions being able to come back there. For my squad, just a very disappointing performance after the Tennessee Titans got throttled 38-13 at home by the Arizona Cardinals. Chandler Jones, 5 sacks by himself. Don't really know what else to say there. Kyler Murray looked very impressive, connecting with DeAndre Hopkins and a couple of touchdowns to Christian Kirk as well. Just overall dominant performance, holding Derrick Henry to under 60 yards rushing. Julio Jones, just a few catches. So overall, Arizona got off to a very nice start to the season. You had the Jacksonville Jaguars in their first game with Trevor Lawrence. It was actually the Tyrod Taylor show, as he looked very impressive, returning back to the starting lineup, defeating the Jaguars 37-21. Trevor Lawrence throwing for over 300 yards in his debut, but unfortunately did throw 3 interceptions in a rout by the Houston Texans, which is pretty surprising to some teams. Another big game happened right here in our city. Kansas City Chiefs coming back from behind to win over the Cleveland Browns 33-29. Very impressive performance by Patrick Mahomes and company, hooking up with Travis Kelce for 2 late scores to, in the end, have the Chiefs prevail over what looked to be a very impressive Cleveland Browns team, who were actually missing Odell Beckham Jr. from that game. The Miami Dolphins were able to outlast the New England Patriots 17-16 in the battle of the Alabama quarterbacks. Tua impressed in a little bit in the first half, but it really was about Mac Jones and his ability to not turn the ball over and find some open receivers. Overall, very nice performance by the rookie in his career debut, but it was a late fumble that did it in for the Patriots as the Miami Dolphins were able to go into Gillette Stadium to get the victory there. Jameis Winston taking over for the New Orleans Saints. Drew Brees said it himself, possibly what the team was missing was a quarterback that could push the ball down the field, and boy, did they ever. What a game by Jameis Winston, throwing 5 touchdown passes en route to a 38-3 victory. Aaron Rodgers just all out of it through 2 interceptions after just throwing 5 total last year. So just not at all what the Packers had in mind there. The Saints looked very, very impressive. And then you had the Sunday night football game, which is the Los Angeles Rams just absolutely destroying the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton did not look very good, but Matthew Stafford did, hooking up with 3 different receivers into the end zone, winning me a major parlay in the death. Got me some nice little bread there. But, big shout out to Matthew Stafford and Robert Woods for the connection at the end there. But the Los Angeles Rams dominated from start to finish. Very impressive for their defense, very impressive by their offense, which then leads us until tonight's game, the first game that will be ever played in Las Vegas, Allegiant Stadium, between the Ravens. And I got my Lamar Jackson, as I need him to have a big night for my personal fantasy team. But he'll be taking on the Raiders in the Death Star. So that was a lot to recap, you guys, just to get you caught up kind of what happened, some of the major news around the league on Sunday's games. What were a few things that stood out to you just early on week 1?
In those noon games, the thing that stood out to me most was offensive line play dictated the results of a ton of games, the performances of a ton of new quarterbacks, and things of that nature. I start Seattle and Indianapolis. I watched this game at a Colts fan's house. He's excited about Carson Wentz's debut. You know, the narrative is I can't wait to see Carson Wentz behind a good offensive line. The Seahawks, a defensive line, a front seven really that struggles to get a lot of pressure, usually has to send a lot of safety blitzes with Jamal Adams. They did not need to this week. The right tackle, Braden Smith, had one of his worst games as a pro. Left tackle, Julian Davenport, he's in replacing. He allowed 8 pressures in the game. Wentz was uncomfortable the entire time. Seahawks won that easy. Similar story in the Jets and Panthers game. Zach Wilson couldn't get his bearings at all in the first half. Looked horrible, mainly because the Carolina Panthers front seven completely overwhelmed the Jets offensive line. Mekhi Becton did get hurt in that game too. So the cornerstone left tackle for the Jets. We await evaluation, but could be a long really a long season for Zach Wilson if pressure continues to catch him like it did in Carolina. But on the flip side, the Chargers in Washington, I talked about this game, how excited I was for it, and I thought it was going to be a matchup mostly of the skill position guys of the Chargers against a solid defense overall in Washington, when the real story happened to be Rashawn Slater, the rookie offensive tackle out of Northwestern, who completely dominated Chase Young. Chase Young had 0 pressures through every single pass. I think he was in for every pass rep. And every time Rashawn Slater blocked him, 0 pressures. The rookie offensive tackle, he's not going to get a ton of praise because he's an offensive lineman. But an unbelievable showing in his first game to slow down one of the league's premier pass rushers. Now, Montez Sweat did have a very good game on the other side of the ball. You can't block both. But a big shout-out to Rashawn Slater. So that was my big takeaway, obviously, from those early games, was offensive line play. And then the game everybody wants to talk about, the Chiefs and Browns from Sunday. The Browns, they look fantastic. I'm going to be honest. The Browns look like a really, really tough team. They just ran into the Chiefs. And they got up by 10 points, which you can't do against the Chiefs. Cardinal rule, don't go up against the Chiefs early on because it won't last for you. Unless they're missing all 5 of their linemen, in which case the Buccaneers can win the Super Bowl on that. But I digress. Mayfield, extremely good game. Missing Odell Beckham Jr. on the outside. was able to incorporate a ton of new guys, guys like Anthony Schwartz, David Njoku making a return for the Browns after whining and crying about wanting out for what feels like the past 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Gets heavily involved. Nick Chubb, he's doing his thing. He's always doing his thing. Nick Chubb's sensational. And it still goes to show how good the Chiefs are, that they can play that good of a game, and because of 1 or 2 mistakes here and there, you end up on the losing side of it. Really unbelievable that the Chiefs team, if you want to beat them, you're going to have to play a perfect game. Can't muff punts, can't fumble. And at the end of the game, you got to execute drives late. You know, even when you're just trying to throw the ball away, it's difficult against the Chiefs. So, what a fantastic game! I think everybody in that game deserves praise. Nobody should feel bad coming out of that game, except maybe Jamie Gillen, the Browns punter. But yeah, it was a sensational day of football. I think a lot of the good teams showed up, and I know you want to talk about your Titans. Go on a little rant right here, so I'm going to let you do that. That's one of the teams that I was pretty disappointed in their Week 1 performance, because obviously I've been here hyping them up, them and the Bills, and it really let me down. So I'd actually let you defer to you on this one, because I know you probably watched all of that game, as painful as it was. So
I did. I did not turn away for any moment. I watched the entire game from start to finish. And I think the Chiefs not only were big winners just in their result, but they were big just around the conference, because I think their biggest threats, they played one of them and won without Tyrann Mathieu. The Titans, a team I think that can do some damage, looked pitiful. The Bills, another team I think that could do some damage, looked pitiful. So I think that and again, it's just Week 1. But I think the teams that could honestly have any type of chance of stopping the Chiefs all took L's themselves. One of them to the Chiefs, and then a couple others. Then we'll see what the Ravens do tonight. That'll be another team I would slot in there. But they've been riddled with injuries that automatically kind of put them kind of on the back burner. So, but as far as the Tennessee Titans go, I really don't know what to say. They came out flat from the beginning, couldn't get Derrick Henry going. Taylor Lewan easily had the worst game of his entire career, which he pointed that out, gave major props to Chandler Jones. I mean, he just was out there just balling. I don't know what we were doing. We do have a new playmaker at the helm, or play caller at the helm, and there was no play action, anything. Though I think the one time that we did play action is when Tannehill got mauled and ended up being a sack strip fumble. So I don't know. It's like after that play, you're just like, no, we're not doing any more play action, which is literally how Tannehill has been able to have so much success. So I don't know. It was really dumb. And then our pass rush that was a really rough assignment Week 1. Like, we got there, like, I watched every single Titans game. Way better than last year. Hands down better. But we went up against Kyler Murray, a guy who knows how to evade defensive linemen. It was just a tough Week 1 assignment. When we didn't have much practice to begin with from all of our guys up front in the preseason. So it was tough on that end for our defense. It was always going to be a battle, because that's a very good offense over there with D-Hop, Christian Kirk, A.J. Green, and all those weapons that Kyler Murray has to deal with. So our pass rush is getting there, but, yeah, that was rough. The Bills, I don't really understand. Again, likewise, the Steelers have a great pass rush. But I would think that they have enough firepower to be able to withstand the Steelers secondary. But I guess not. I don't know what that was. I had that game on as well. I didn't watch that as much. But it just seemed like every time I looked up, it seemed like Josh Allen was running for his life. No one was getting open. So I don't know if that's more of an indictment on their offensive line, is that an indictment on their receiving core? Because, Cole Beasley had a decent day for fantasy for me, but I don't know. It just on a play-to-play basis did not look like he was finding any open receivers. So something that they'll have to clean up. And, again, that is another tough Week 1 assignment. But, you got to give props to where props is due, to the Steelers, getting it done when they needed to on offense. Obviously, played a great defensive game, and then had a special team score which pretty much sealed it. So they won in all 3 phases of the game. You almost never lose if that's the case. So they give the Steelers credit there, who maybe are not as dead as we thought they were.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of scoffed a little bit at the Melvin Ingram offseason signing, as in, I didn't think there was any way Melvin Ingram was going to be able to replace the production lost by Bud Dupree. Melvin Ingram tore the Bills up, just tore them to shreds. So maybe I think we all kind of were a little bit sleeping on the Steelers. This is a team last year that started 11-0 before going to complete hell in a handbasket, but it's undeniable the talent's there. And, Bills get a chance to regroup against Miami, who currently is the only team in the AFC East for the win. So look at that. You win week 2 and you feel just as good about yourself as if you'd won week 1.
Yeah.
The beauty of the NFL game.
That's exactly why it's like not a reason to panic, even for as bad as my team got throttled. Now we have a very tough week 2 assignment as we go to Seattle. So that's gonna be a brutal game. But it just shows you, like, if the Titans are able to win, I mean, currently right now who's leading our division is the Houston Texans, the only team that won in the AFC South. So I mean, by no means are you dead out of the water. Even if they fall to 0-2, I don't think the Colts like where they're at right now, and Jacksonville's got a lot of things to figure out. In fact, there's rumors going on they might lose their coach after this recent USC firing, so which I don't think will happen, but they're dealing with that. So no reason to go crazy just yet. But
yeah, and of course, Colts, the biggest threat to you guys, play the Rams in week 2.
Yeah, like
after their offensive line just got slaughtered. So we're not gonna know. We're really not gonna know who these teams are maybe until week 7, week 8. This is just our best guess after what we've seen week 1.
Yeah.
Bright spots, things to work on, but if you get blown out, the good news is blown out week 1. Hey, you'll never run out of things to stop working on.
You can only go up from there.
Yes, sir. Yes,
with
sir.
That being said, there's been so much unknown, we kind of started doing this toward the end of the NFL season last year. Do you have a top 5 as we leave week 1, just as we got kind of transition out into week 2 after just this last game? You have a top 5 in the NFL right now.
Yeah, this is interesting, because do you base it on knowledge you held previously going into the season? Do you base it on your top 5 teams that week? The list would be very different for me, but I'm going to go best teams in the NFL from what I saw. The Kansas City Chiefs are number 1. You cannot make a mistake against them no matter how good you play. Browns made, by my count, 3 major mistakes, cost them the ball game. So Chiefs are my number 1 team. Number 2, I'm still going to go with the Buccaneers. It was a challenging game, week 1. I think the Cowboys surprised them a little bit. The Cowboys have a ton of weapons. Prescott looked incredible, especially, no preseason, no offseason to work with shoulder and ankle problems. And I think he surprised them. But the Bucs, again, that's a team you cannot make any mistakes against. The Bucs actually made all the mistakes and still came out on top. They're my number 2. The Los Angeles Rams were my number 3. I love their defense. I really liked what I saw from Stafford. And obviously he's going to get more comfortable with the offense. This is a guy who also didn't play at all in the preseason. So this was your first time really ever seeing him in a Rams uniform. And he seemed to command the offense just fine. The Bears, they're not really the scariest offense to go up against. But the defense, they are who I thought they were after week 1. So they're my number 3. I think I'm going to go with the Browns at number 4. Going into the season, I love their roster. I thought they were top to bottom the second most talented roster in the AFC. They've given me no reason not to think that after week 1. Like I said, just a few mistakes here and there, but they did have the Chiefs on the ropes. And if you were to ask me right now, those are the 2 top teams in the AFC that met week 1. At number 5, this one's kind of surprising. I think will be surprising. But I'm going to go with the Cardinals. And this is kind of that week 1 creeping in. But really all that team needed was Kyler Murray to take the next step. And the next step is consistency. And I kind of wanted to wait till week 2 to see. But I also did not anticipate Chandler Jones would come back with the vengeance that he did. It looks like 2019 Chandler Jones after that week 1. It looks better than 2019 Chandler Jones. That was unreal. And if the defense is as good as advertised week 1, that is just – I mean, this team has no excuses for not making the playoffs. I don't care about the division they play in. The Seahawks and the 49ers are there. I don't care about that. If the defense plays like that, there's no excuses for Murray and that offense to miss the playoffs. I love what I saw from the Cardinals week 1. I loved it. For them, I'm going to slide them in at 5 right now. There's a lot of teams that could be 4, that could be 5, but after a preliminary just week 1, what I've seen so far, those are the 5 that I'm rolling with.
Yeah. So for me, number 1, I'm actually going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I thought that they made quite a few mistakes. And, I mean, they were getting picked on. They had a corner just consistently getting picked on. Dak threw for all over the place. They couldn't contain Amari Cooper. And they still found a way to pull out a victory, which is just insane. So, like, they have, like, steps to get far better as a team, even though they're returning the same starting 22 players on offense and defense. And they're still like a gear that they can kick it into. So, for me, just for right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and being the Super Bowl champions, the Buccaneers have to be number 1. They've given me no reason to back off on them so far. Behind them, just ever so slightly behind them, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they were missing 2 of their two very good players out there on their defensive side with Frank Clark and the Honey Badger. So, and for them to be able to still pull out a victory is huge. And to show that they can, no matter how many points they get down, they just find a way. That 75-yard bomb from Mahomes to Hill, it just literally, there's just one play away at any point in time. So the Chiefs are number 2 for me. For number 3, I'm going to have to go to the Los Angeles Rams as well. They were very impressive. I mean, their receivers were just wide open, though. I think there was quite a few busts on the Chicago Bears side because, I mean, 2 of those touchdowns, I don't know. I don't think there's not a starting quarterback in the NFL that couldn't have made those throws. Because that was bad. But nonetheless, still not taking nothing away from Stafford. I mean, in the end, he was able to throw on the ball. The defense looks dominating, flying around. The secondary looks nice. We already know what that front line is going to do with Aaron Donald leading there. So the Rams look very impressive. For number 4, I'm going Seattle. They were my pick to win the NFC West to begin with. And I don't see them anything from week 1 that moves them off of that for right now. Despite how impressive the Cardinals looked. Seattle, Russell Wilson out there doing his thing. If their defensive line's getting pressure, I mean, that's a team that's a scary team. That's a team that's going to do some damage. If they're out there, create pressure, can force these teams to become one-dimensional, which I think they struggle sometimes with guarding the pass, but if that's the only thing you can do on that defense, that's going to be really scary. So that's going to be interesting to watch there. If their defense is going back to how Pete Carroll wishes they were back in the 12s, 13s, and 14s, Seattle's going to be a force to be reckoned with. And then that leads me to my number 5, which is the Arizona Cardinals. Because, I mean, if they're able to protect – that's what was so crazy is Tennessee has a pretty decent offensive line. They just got abused yesterday. The Titans revamped their D-line a little bit, and it was the Arizona Cardinals offensive line that pretty much held up for the most part. So if they're able to protect Kyler Murray, because that was their biggest thing. He got injured last year, and his final 6 games were horrific. So if he's able to stay healthy, they can block and keep him from taking so many hits with that receiving core. And if their defense is going to be abusing folks like that, that's going to be very scary. So, yeah, Arizona would come in at 5 for me after that performance yesterday. Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah. No, I think the top teams really stood out, and I think there's something to be said for what the Saints did. We didn't talk too much about Aaron Rodgers and how bad the Packers really looked. There's something to be said for them. I still, even as great as they looked, I still don't know how much I believe in Jameis. In a tight ball game, it's easy to kind of kick a team, continue to kill a team when you're already up by so much. But if that was a close game, I still don't know how much I believe in Jameis Winston in that regard. But as far as yesterday, I mean, he was very impressive.
I'm also a little more lenient towards the Packers, given the tumultuous offseason and Rodgers basically not being with the team for the entirety of the offseason, not playing preseason. So
yeah,
I was a little bit generous towards the Packers, I think, and that doesn't take anything away from the Saints, but I didn't go nuts like you probably thought I was going to about Rodgers, but because I could have gone crazy.
That was a pathetic performance, but I don't know. He just looked like he didn't care. So I don't know. But what is you doing? Nominee could have gone out to the entire NFC North. They're all 0-1. That is just the Vikings lose in overtime. The Bears get murdered. The Packers get murdered, and the Lions were getting murdered, and just made a late comeback. But they were like late heroics away from 3 out of their 4 teams getting just absolutely ran through. And then the other one being the Vikings losing to the worst team in the AFC North.
I saw that if there was a Vikings fan that if the season was over today, we would be in the playoffs because they're the team that lost by the least. So I guess our guy Connor has that to look forward to.
All right, now over to a sport where I'm not really too happy to talk about. I don't care that my team won today. This is just stupid. The MLB. The wild card race is getting real tight, and now all of a sudden, the Toronto Blue Jays out of thin air are currently holding the top spot into the wild card, followed by the Boston Red Sox, followed by the Yankees, who are just a half a game out of the postseason now. It's just these dudes. My team finds a way to lose at every turn. I mean, we gave up 3 home runs to the same man in the same night. I just don't get it. So right now, you got to give major props to how the Toronto Blue Jays are playing. Yankees are 3-12 after their 13-0 streak. They're now 3-12 after that run was ended. In large part due to how the Baltimore Orioles have been playing. They've just been beating everybody just all of a sudden until they ran into the Blue Jays, and then they just started getting ran through. But the Blue Jays are currently now in the wild card spot for the American League. In the NL, we still have the Padres and the Reds tied for that last spot, but they are now only a game ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals, who have out of thin air have come back. But I know they will not make the playoffs now because Connor started bragging about it. He was very quiet as the Cardinals were creeping in. Now he started to brag about how they're only a game back. And I know without a doubt, I'd be willing to bet everything in my bank account now that they will not make the postseason because Connor started bragging about it. So, but they are just a game back as of right now. So there's only about 3 weeks left in baseball. This is going to be a tight race.
Yeah, I would hate to be in the wild card spot right now, having to worry about all these games, each one meaning so much, especially, for the Yankees who are losing the way that they are right now. These close games where players that are
80 games means nothing. Winning over 80 games means nothing.
No, not good enough, especially not for New York fans. The National League wild card races, it's pretty fascinating. The American League, there's going to be really maybe 5. I'm being generous to Seattle and Oakland, but there's a race for 2 spots there. The fact that the National League, one team is so far ahead, and it's going to be whoever doesn't win the division between the Giants and Dodgers gets that number 1 wild card. The race there is going to be completely furious. I mean, even the Mets are just 3 games out. The Phillies are only 2.5 out from that last wild card spot. There's only 1 spot to be had from all those teams: Padres, Reds, Cardinals, Phillies, Mets. Whew. Man, stressful baseball coming up. And I love being a part of it because it's 2 guys who are in our group as fans of 2 teams that need to get that last spot. Otherwise, it's a completely failed season. And I know you feel that way for your Yankees. You know, if they don't go to the playoffs, completely failed season. That's how it is every year for the Yankees. But it hits a little bit different when it's the Padres, who are the MLB darling right now, and the Cardinals, who I was told have the best corner infield in the game, and was bragged to about it pretty much nonstop through April. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be a Rays fan, to be from the top looking down at everybody else. It's a pretty stress-free time for me as an MLB fan.
It's rough out here. It is very rough. Now, I would like to say we get some favorable matchups, but knowing this team, we don't make anything favorable anymore because we got the Orioles coming up, followed by Cleveland and the Rangers. 3 teams that we should easily be better than, but I don't know. And then we close with the Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Rays. So I don't know. A lot of very important baseball coming up for my Yankees, the Blue Jays, and Red Sox. And then on the other side in the National League, you got Connor's Cardinals, Monte's Padres, Cincinnati Reds are just deadlocked even with the Padres, and then the Phillies and Mets are right there. So there's so much more. There's so much left to play for. And then what's going to be crazy is, still the Dodgers are only 2.5 back of the Giants, so they're still very much in this thing to get the overall 1 seed in the whole NL. So.
Yeah, that's not going to be a fun wild card game for whoever comes in second, having to go up against one of those 2 teams, either Giants or Dodgers. But that definitely, I'd have to imagine they feel incredible. If you're the Dodgers right now in the spot that they're at, I think you feel amazing either way, even if you do go to the wild card, because you know who you have that'll take the mound for you. You know what your lineup looks like compared to everybody else's. I feel like they're looking at this amazingly because they're not worried about anybody catching them. It's not – these are games that we have to win. It's just games that, if we do win, we could win the division. If we don't win, we'll see the Giants when we see them. And that's got to be such a great feeling, too, for the Dodgers. And another great feeling, too, before we move on, our hometown Royals, who have not had a great year, with 1 more win, will surpass the win total that Connor Reed set for them before the season. So as long as the Royals do not lose all 19 games left of this year, they will surpass Connor's win total. I don't know if they'll reach yours. I forget exactly what yours was.
Originally, I think I said 79, and then I changed it to like 73, I believe. I'll have to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure it's the 73.
Yeah, I knew yours was up there. I said 72, so a 7-12 finish for the Royals will put them right at the mark that I thought they'd be at this year. You have the 5-year plan for them to win the World Series in 2024, I believe.
Yes. Is
when they'll be World Series champions.
Yes, we will.
So just a shout out to them. They passed Cardinals fans' expectations for them. And I definitely Montes. I don't even know if he gave a record prediction, but he said they wouldn't win 20 games last year. So, so yeah, it's a lost season for us, but for the group, we're keeping our spirits high by telling us it could have been much worse.
It definitely could have, and they have some games that they can win. And what's funny is they can actually really play spoiler too, because they have the A's in Seattle coming up, so they can kind of actually ruin their last sliver of hope to get into the postseason. So they can just be complete utter a-holes to the rest of the league, and then the rest I believe are just like divisional opponents after that. So just teams you're already familiar with, which you could sneak some wins in there. So. No, we should definitely be getting to 70 wins and over that mark, which is really what I wanted from us to begin with. Never did I actually think that I said we were going to be right outside of the postseason. I didn't think it would take – it looks like in the AL East, if you win shy of 90 games, you're not even going to make the playoffs. So never did I anticipate it being that close of a race, which is just not fair to anybody else. I can't expect the Royals to go into the season. If you don't win 90 games, you're not even making the postseason. So it's unfair to them. But, yeah. No, they're getting there. I have a plan, and we're going to execute it. We're going to be in the postseason in 2 years, and we're going to win that World Series in 24, baby.
He's running by the front office. They all agree.
They know what to do. They know what to do.
As long as they know. Look, as long as they know, I think we'll be patient. We'll live for football season in Mahomes here in Kansas City. Then we'll wait. 2024, we'll be getting the best of both worlds like we're Hannah Montana.
Oh, Lord. All right, well, with a Miley Cyrus bar in there, we're going to move on. Move on over to the world of college football. Like I said earlier, another entertaining week in the sport. Couple of showdowns, top 25 opponents went down. It all started at first, though, with our half of, or I guess 3/4 of our group, all rooting for the Kansas Jayhawks to take down number 17 Coastal Carolina on Friday night. I am so glad to announce that Coastal Carolina won 49-22. I've never heard of a game talked about so much in our group that ended in such a beatdown. Oh my gosh. Just listen. I will never root for KU as long as I live. I think this is already understood. But I have left them alone for the most part. I don't bring them up. I don't even say anything until other people in our group mention something. And then I have to go remind them that they stormed the field for beating a FCS school. Not even a good one either. So, in the end, Coastal Carolina did what they were supposed to do. I'm very happy for that. But to some more important games that occurred on Saturday. The top two teams in the land dominated their performance. Alabama over Mercer, Georgia over UAB. Neither game was really close at any point in time. Bama's got a big-time showdown with the Gators coming up, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the number 3 team in the land, or former number 3 team in the land, took an L at home to the number 12 Oregon Ducks, that being the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Let's go!
Who did indeed lose their first ever regular season loss under Ryan Day. They had a chance to win it in the end. Unfortunately, we're unable to come up with it in the end. Oregon with a very impressive performance on the road. Pretty much dominated from start to finish. Had a lead to begin with and never saw it dwindle away. So the Oregon Ducks now have already soared all the way up to number 4 in the most current standings. So huge jump there for the Ducks. Will the Pac-12 finally have another team in the playoff? I don't think so either, but that is a chance. They have a chance.
They've given themselves a chance.
Pretty much, if you're Oregon, you need Ohio State to never lose again. And they also can't lose either. For them to even have like a sliver of hope.
That's the one they got to worry about.
But what, them continuing to win?
Yeah, they better. They got to win out. One loss in the Pac-12 dooms you.
And you're done for, so yeah. But great performance overall by Oregon. Oklahoma getting things done at the number 4 team in the land, wins 76-0 over Western Carolina. Never really a game there. Texas A&M got all they could handle from Colorado and then some after their starting quarterback went down in the first quarter of the game. They were able to ink that win out 10-7, scoring a late touchdown in the fourth quarter to get that victory there. Played in Denver, the Denver Broncos Stadium. Number 6 team in the land, Clemson, easily winning 49-3 over South Carolina State. Cincinnati the same way after their 42-7 victory over Murray State. Number 8, Notre Dame, again, nearly took a loss, able to withstand in the end from Toledo. They just barely beat Florida State just a week ago, and we'll get into them in a minute. But Toledo had a chance, ended up blowing it in the end, unable to create one last stop against that Notre Dame offense, and they continue to be undefeated, 2-0 after 2 narrow victories there for the Fighting Irish. The Cy-Hawk was underway this weekend with the Iowa Hawkeyes dominating pretty much. The score, I feel like the final score doesn't even really tell the whole story. 27-17 in favor of the Hawkeyes after beating the Cyclones. in Iowa State to make to add insult to injury. But it was Iowa who pretty much dominated from start to finish. Iowa State's offense could not get anything really going on in their game. We saw an upset alert, which led to a good coach getting fired with Stanford over USC, 42-28. Stanford looked very unimpressive in their opening game against the Kansas State Wildcats, able to come back after I was told that their coach was a big dummy by somebody. They were able to come back on the road and get a victory over the Trojans, 42-28. Texas, they are officially not back. As horns down on this podcast, Texas took a fat L in Arkansas Razorback land, losing that game in grand fashion. 40-21 was never really close. I can't believe what I saw. I never really believed in Arkansas, but man, they looked really impressive against Texas. So now I don't know. Is Arkansas actually impressive, or was that just Texas being, Texas? So I guess that remains to be seen. Arkansas does play in the SEC West, so we'll know really, really quickly how good of a team they are. Some more top 25 teams that went down. The Utah Utes had their bitter rivalry with BYU. They had not lost to them in a very long time. And they took an L this Saturday, losing 17-26. BYU, all pretty much a very new roster. Obviously, don't have their quarterback from last year in Zach Wilson. Able to get it done. BYU now currently ranked. So, new quarterback, no problem so far for BYU. And then that pretty much wraps it up for our top 25. Did anything really stand out to you from this weekend after we had some top 25 teams go down, some top 25 teams making some statements?
Well, the Oregon Ducks definitely stood out. I mean, it's hard to, talk about any other game from this weekend because of how happy that I am with the results in that one and just how good they looked. I mean, this is a team where you had question marks at the quarterback. Their starting quarterback from last year transfers to Texas Tech. Anthony Brown gets the starting job this year. And he's a veteran guy. He's just solid. He's just a solid quarterback. Lets the running backs do what they need to do. And that defense that Oregon has that was missing I'd argue two of their three best players with Thibodeau out, who might be the number one overall pick, and Justin Flo, who's a man-child, also missing that game. For them to do what they did against Ohio State, I mean, C.J. Stroud ends up with 460 passing yards, all out of necessity. Ohio State couldn't run the ball. They were going to make him throw the ball all over the field. They've got extremely talented wide receivers. To hold them under 30 points, if any other team does that this year, great job defensively against Ohio State. It was just a phenomenal performance, top to bottom. Ryan Day was outcoached by Cristobal. The Ohio State rush defense is pretty atrocious through 2 weeks, if we're going to be completely honest. Mo Ibrahim had his way with Ohio State. I think he had 160 yards in 3 quarters against them before he ended up injuring himself for the season. And they just ran wild. I hope this is a sign of things to come for both teams. The Pac-12 could really use some of this life that Oregon and UCLA are providing early in the year. And that leads directly into my other takeaway about another Pac-12 team who we thought at the beginning of the season may have something. They had Keaton Slovis returning at quarterback. USC, they were supposed to be good. Every year they were supposed to be good. And they finally pulled the plug. Clay Helton has been on the hot seat essentially since he took the position of head coach at USC. They said results over everything. If you don't get them, you're gone. And extremely hit or miss, almost on a week-to-week basis with USC football the past few years. And losing to this Stanford team who, yes, I did call David Shaw a big dum-dum. I do need to clarify the situation last week. Instead of going for 2 to make it a 2-score game late in the game, he kicked an extra point to keep it a 3-score game, which essentially did nothing. That's why I said it. I don't actually think he's dumb because he is the head coach of Stanford.
I was like,
so I think there's
you have to do one.
I think you have to pass some sort of entrance exam to head coach at Stanford in any sport they have, because they can't let the kids be that much smarter than you. So, obviously not that dumb, and obviously really good at adjusting, extremely good at adjusting, which is something you can't say for Clay Helton. USC, every time they go out, they're going to do the exact same things, but execution leaves a lot to be desired. There's nothing that seemingly changes about USC from week to week, no matter if they're playing San Jose State, they come back to play Stanford. It doesn't matter what happens. Everything looks the exact same, the way they play defense, the way they play offense, and it's important to have an identity, but it's important to change and to be able to adapt on the fly when things aren't working out in your favor. Because once they fell behind in that game, I believe 28-13, they did the same things. It was the same mistakes the entire game. Clay Helton never adjusted to anything that Stanford was doing. And when you check back in, flip over to Utah, BYU, and then check back in, and they're down 42-13. You're really just thinking at that moment, like, how much more time does this guy have? Keyshawn Johnson, famous alumni, tweeted about getting Clay Helton out of there. This fire was pretty much in the works. They were just looking for an opportunity to do it. And Saturday definitely provided the chance, because Stanford week 1 to week 2 looked like a completely different team. And USC, I mean, it's like they run scripted plays for not the first 20 plays, but the first 200 plays of the season. I mean, my goodness, it was abysmal. And for USC's sake, I think it's a good thing they fired Helton. Obviously, you never want to see people lose their job, but for USC to get to where they want to be, it's a move that had to be made. And Stanford may have, in the long run, done them a favor with this victory.
Yeah, I mean, USC is just too big of a program, too big of a name to be as mediocre as they've been. I mean, under Helton, they were 46-24, which is a 65% winning percentage. Not nearly good enough, especially seeing how you play in the Pac-12, full of teams that should be easier opponents, when virtually anybody that's on the West Coast, like, or I feel like grows up a USC fan, USC or UCLA, pretty much one of the two. So you got to be able to get the right recruits in there, and yeah, that's just not going to get it done. So I am interested to see who they bring in. I remember when he was hired, I didn't even really know too much about him. So I don't know if they're going to go with that. They're going to try to go for a bigger name. People are throwing out Urban Meyer. I highly doubt that. He's going to jump ship after just one loss with a rookie quarterback. But, that man has, he's thrown surprises at me before. So you never know with Urban.
I don't hate that, because there's a report came out today on ESPN. The report said that Urban Meyer is having a lot of backlash from within the staff. A lot of players reportedly aren't a fan of the way Urban Meyer operates in the NFL. He might just be one of those guys that only works in college. It might be a Nick Saban type scenario where he likes to have full control of everything that goes on. He doesn't like the corroboration amongst the staff, a staff that he handpicked in Jacksonville, by the way, that he's now fighting with. So this could actually be a move that, if in all honesty, I could definitely see this happening. All I know for sure about USC's next hire is it's going to be a massive name. It's going to be something that breathes life back into the program, because, I mean, they've gone with coaches that we know the names, but we don't know the coach, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. The Sarkisians and the Heltons and all that. So this will be a big – I'd assume it's going to be a big name bomb when they hire this head coach, whoever it is. And he's going to have pretty much be placed right on the hot seat right away. So yes. That's all I know for sure is I'm really confident USC is going to get a big name head coach, and right away he's going to be under immense pressure. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sucks. Hey, thank you. Welcome to USC. You have 2 years. to show us
It
something impressive.
It might be Brian Kelly. If Notre Dame keeps playing these close games against inferior opponents, all of his players will be executed, and he'll be looking for somewhere to run to.
Yeah. I mean, remember, they gave Steve Sarkisian 1 year.
Yeah.
He was there for like a season. Maybe there for 2. Maybe it was 14 and 15. But that was just 14.
Yeah.
They don't give you much time.
That's a tough spot. And it's never good when Chip Kelly's the best head coach in your collegiate city. But yeah, so they'll have to fix that. Real quick. Really quick. Because college football is better when USC is good, if we're going to be honest. Because this year, what am I going to do? Get excited for the Oregon versus UCLA Pac-12 championship game? I mean, give me something to watch at 10:30 on Saturdays.
I guess the only thing that does make it a little more exciting is it's at least some new teams that we've been seeing here lately. I mean, I guess Oregon's kind of the same, but I think the teams are usually ranked. It's Washington and Arizona State, and then every now and then WashU will get in there, or Wazoo will get in there. But for the most part, it's usually USC will be ranked, Arizona State, Washington. That's it.
Yeah, but that's kind of the tough part.
At least it is nice to see UCLA in there.
That's kind of the tough part, too, about the Pac-12, the way the divisions are set up, is USC really should be dominating that Pac-12 South. You know, it feels like we're kind of in this revolving sort of state where USC can be good, not great, and go to the Pac-12 championship game. And then if USC's mediocre or not good, then Utah will go. But, yeah, the Pac-12 North is usually where a lot of the talent lies, being that they have Washington, Stanford, Oregon, and teams like that. So, for me personally, I like when USC is good because at least it challenges that team up north in the Pac-12. But, I mean, hey, it's the most unpredictable Power 5 conference, and
sure,
it does kind of make for some exciting football, that Pac-12 After Dark brand.
Yep.
And then we'll close the news portion of the night with a sport that, again, we don't get to talk about very often. We go to tennis. Up to New York for tennis, the U.S. Open, our major tournament, which saw Novak Djokovic attempting to create history by, 1, winning the most Grand Slam titles ever, and 2, going the entire calendar year, winning every major title. And he was 1 win away from doing it. And, of course, the Russian had different ideas. Daniil Medvedev beat him in straight sets, complete domination of Djokovic in the final to prevent him from surpassing Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal in the overall major slams title, in the overall majors title race, and preventing the calendar Grand Slam, which had never been done by a man before. So Djokovic, he'll have something to shoot for next year. Look at that. Something to inspire Djokovic to win another 3 to 4 majors next year.
Yeah.
But sensational moment for Medvedev. He's been number 2 in the world. It feels like for this entire calendar year. He's been number 2. And, of course, you're not winning majors when Djokovic is in the field. He gets his first ever. So huge congrats to him. I saw him in an interview. He was playing up the crowd. They were not happy that he won, by the way. Everybody there wanted to see Djokovic.
Yeah.
I see dudes getting booed in his post-game press conference. And he's out there.
Disrespect.
I do this for you. I do this for you. You give me life. Like, oh, man. Great moment. He was really playing it up. Congrats to Medvedev. We would have had to hear from Connor about Djokovic, the unquestioned GOAT now. The margin is very thin for me between Djokovic being the GOAT and Federer being the GOAT. But that's where we're at right now is unfortunately, I guess, cheering against Djokovic because of Connor, which seems to be a common theme in our podcast if you haven't followed.
Yeah.
On the women's side was an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old in the final. In case you didn't feel bad enough already, about sitting at home watching the professional athletes who are your age playing this weekend. An 18 and 19-year-old played for a major title, and Emma Raducanu wins the tournament. She was a qualifier to get in. So she did not even have an automatic bid, had to qualify. And as soon as she got to New York, she did not lose a set entire tournament.
That's insane.
Did not lose a set the entire tournament. Defeats the 19-year-old Leylah Fernandez, who had to beat 3 top 5 opponents to reach the final as a 19-year-old. And it's honestly a great thing for women's tennis. The fact that there's new life coming in as we see Serena and Venus sort of nearing the end of their reign. Naomi Osaka is taking a break from tennis to deal with her mental health. The women's game is looking for stars, and they may have just found 2 young stars in New York. But what an eventful U.S. Open. This tournament lasted 2 weeks. This tournament felt like it lasted all the way through August and then into September here with as much stuff that went down in this tournament as it did. And at the end of the day, it's 2 first-time major champions being crowned. And it's pretty tough to beat that. It's pretty tough to beat that.
Yeah. No, she definitely the sport of tennis is in need of that, especially on the women's side. So, no, I think I agree with you. I think that is a very good thing. They are kind of missing that face, and Osaka's kind of been that with Serena kind of starting to fade off a little bit. But, yeah, with her recent, time off from the sport, they definitely need something like this. So, and that's insanely impressive. To not lose a single set the whole tournament, you just whoop everybody at 18 years old. That's insane.
Yeah, they say she's the next big thing. She's like that elite prospect in baseball that comes into the MLB and like a Tatis in baseball. Comes in and just does his thing right away, pushes the old folks out into the retirement home a little quicker. That's what they're predicting for Raducanu's career. At least what I've read on it.
That's what we need from boxing. Somebody young to come in, whoop all these old dudes that we're throwing in the ring. Bring a little bit more excitement back to the sport.
You don't think Jake Paul can't do that?
No, I don't actually. Well, I mean, he'd be whooping to some of the old guys that we were just talking about. Actually, I don't know. Maybe so. His endurance is probably a lot better. I don't know. I don't want to see that either. I want to see a Holyfield out there with Jake Paul.
I don't think Holyfield will ever get in the ring again. If he does, somebody is severely messed up.
It doesn't sound like he needs to be. He's medically uncleared.
He was not cleared. And then, of course, it was Florida Boxing Commission that said, yeah, come down and fight here.
We'll take anything.
That's not a lie at all. Not a lie at all. It's a great segment. Into the Creed moment.
Yeah, exactly. He will take and do anything. As our man Creed. What were you about to say?
Oh, you continue. You go on the rant about our man Creed. I think I know where you're going with it.
Oh, Connor Evans. He just does way too much, and people are out there acting just like him. And they need to stop. Which brings us to our Creed moment of this week. Mine is going to go out to your boy, sorry to say, but your boy Jalen Mayfield. We talked about this a little bit this morning. Offensive lineman recently selected by the Atlanta Falcons, who tweeted out not too long ago, right around the time of being around the draft. He said, if you don't want your quarterback to take a hit, or if you don't want your QB to get hit, take me. It's simple as that. Well, unfortunately for Mayfield, there's a nice, convenient photo taken from up high. It's like a little sky view cam of Matt Ryan looking like he is dead on the turf with Mayfield staring over him. And it's Brandon Graham just absolutely mauling Matt Ryan. This is a Creed moment. Because if you guys haven't picked up on this, if Connor says one thing will happen as if he's trying to predict the future, the opposite tends to happen. And like our good friend Jalen Mayfield here, listen, I admire the confidence. Look, he was one of the best offensive linemen to be selected. No problem with that. But if you're going to put things out there, you got to back it up because it looks real bad, especially in this circumstance. Because, Matt Ryan literally looks like he's dead on the turf in this photo. And Mayfield was just looking dumbfounded at him. So you're my creator this way, Jalen Mayfield. Don't let it happen again. Matt Ryan's a good guy. He doesn't deserve that.
Yeah, this one will be hanging in the football Louvre next to all the other Michigan on Michigan moments. The Tuck rule with Woodson and Brady. Brandon Graham with the forced fumble in the Super Bowl to give the Eagles the win against Tom Brady. And now this one, obviously, the Michigan on Michigan crime. That'll be hanging in the iconic football image Hall of Fame. Another image that will likely go into the Hall of Fame, Jacksonville State's, not Florida State's, is the outcome of Saturday's game in Tallahassee between the Jacksonville State Gamecocks and the Florida State Seminoles.
You have to.
For anybody that has been living under a rock and doesn't know what happened, as time expired, Clemson transfer quarterback Zarek Cooper threw an absolute bomb, a 59-yard touchdown to a receiver as time expired. And what makes it even crazier, it wasn't in the end zone. It wasn't a typical Hail Mary. It was one receiver beating one defensive back down the field, making the catch, making a man miss, getting a block, and running it into the end zone from about 5 to 7 yards out.
Yeah.
This is a Creed moment. Very similar to how the Jets were a Creed moment last year when they were attempting to get their first win of the season against the Raiders. And instead of going prevent defense on the final play of the game, they said, we'll man this. We'll go man coverage, one-on-one. May your best beat our best. And guess what? Jacksonville State's best is apparently better than Florida State's best. Because Jacksonville State, the FCS school that got shut out by UAB week 1, pulls off the upset in Tallahassee based on what I would have to assume is a completely horrible – it must be trolling. It must just be the completely disrespectful and or stupid call from the Florida State defensive coordinator that allowed this play to happen at the end of the game. Very reminiscent of the Jets-Raiders game, which we also gave Creed moment to. Now, how does this relate to Connor? Connor is one of the most risky people that I know that doesn't know when to take risk.
That it backfires on.
Oh, it backfires all the time. If you've ever helped out this man with his Tinder, sending messages out, you would understand what we're talking about. If you talk to this man when our group got really into sports betting, you would know what we're talking about. It's a high risk, low reward sort of scenario that Connor finds himself in so often. And if you're Florida State, there is no shame in saying, you know what, let's just play it safe, keep everything in front, and let's win the game no matter how embarrassing it is. Who are you trying to prove yourself to by going man in a situation like this? I mean, my goodness. And what makes it even worse is they were so close to beating Notre Dame the week prior. They got so close, came back, and we were all feeling different. We said, this Florida State team's built different. This Florida State team might be different.
I was not saying that.
Turns out Notre Dame's not very good, 1. And then 2, Florida State just played an amazing game. They're way worse than we thought. And you're rooting the Mackenzie Milton comeback story. Take a good thing and mess it all up. Do you take a good thing and you mess it all up, Florida State?
I would also like to point out that we were talking earlier about Florida State, and earlier that day, and you made a comment. You said, well, Florida State's at least the best school in Tallahassee. Are we sure? Are we sure there's not a JUCO out there in Tallahassee or something? Some FCS school?
I don't.
Because at this point, Jacksonville State just beat them. How many teams are ahead of them in the state of Florida? You have to imagine the University of Miami, UCF, USF, I think, would be better than Jacksonville State. And then you got Florida International and Atlantic.
Yeah.
Good.
And then maybe even some of the Florida FCS schools, too.
Jacksonville State beat them.
My goodness. It was so embarrassing, especially, given the fact that Jacksonville State the week prior lost 31-0 to UAB to open the season. A UAB team that lost essentially to Georgia's second stringers 56-7. So, I do little calculations, little basic math, and it seems like Florida State, relative to other good Power 5 teams, are about 84 points worse, based on the math that we do right there. Well, the level that they want to get to, they're kind of like the East Coast USC, but more embarrassing, because at least USC is mediocre and losing to Stanford, who at least is in their conference. But Florida State wants to be up here. Florida State's down here. Oh, you can't even see my hand. That's probably fitting. So they're down there, losing to Jacksonville State because they're too proud to go prevent. I don't know what it was. That DC has got to be gone. Mike Norvell, he called out the defensive play call at the end of the game. He's the head coach of Florida State, calls out the defensive coordinator. If he still has a job by the time they play next week against Wake Forest, then he has not done his job. Or the university has not done their job to give these kids a chance. And if I was the number one recruit in the country, currently who's committed to Florida State, I'm watching that game, maybe going back through the mail, seeing who else offered. Just
that is as bad as it gets.
It is the worst loss. It will be, I think, by the end of the year, the worst loss of the college football season. I don't know which one's going to get worse.
Loss in team history, so that might be worse than that. Might be the worst loss in the last 5-6 years. Jacksonville State.
It was bad, very bad. You can't even beat the guys who transferred from Clemson. How are you going to win the ACC? Damn shame.
That's rough. And we'll get to test that theory, how bad they really are, because they play Clemson this year, so we'll see. They played Miami. They'll play some of these other teams, so we can see how bad they truly are. That is just...
All of those teams just got put on welcome to your Creed moment watch if they lose to Florida State now.
Yeah. No,
we're about to create the circle. It's all going to come back to how bad would they lose to Stetson Bennett's Georgia. That's going to be my project for the fall. Florida State's first win. I'm going back to see how bad they'd lose to Georgia.
Florida State at this point is everybody's homecoming game. That's what they've been downgraded to. We're the game that we bring all the recruits to because it's a guaranteed win at this point.
Nice. Wake Forest getting their homecoming done early this year.
Come on, boy. This is the best show of the year. Florida State's in town. I absolutely love it.
Damn, they got roasted. I think this was harder than Nebraska. We were harsher on Florida State, I think.
Nebraska lost to a conference opponent.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like Mizzou's playing Southeast Missouri State this week. That's equivalent to that. If Missouri loses to Southeastern State, you need to be done. Like, just pack it up. If you can't even beat a team that's like not even in the same division, same subdivision as you in your own state, you need to at home. You need to pack it up. You need to pack it on up. You need to be done.
Luckily, I don't think Missouri's in any danger.
They should not be, but they still have some things to work on based on their performance last week. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, have any final thoughts before Monday Night Football gets going?
I'll be cheering very big for Lamar Jackson this week. Fantasy football's here, so that consumes all of us. So Lamar Jackson, good luck to you tonight. As the quarterback, the running back, maybe the number one wide receiver for the Ravens now. I'm expecting big things. There's my final thought.
Yeah. I don't really have much of a final thought other than your boys taking it home in this week's Pick'em games. I was able to had the best record in college football, which got me the win essentially. We all had a rough NFL week, as week one's always the hardest week to predict. You never know exactly how teams are going to come out. Injuries play a role, all this and that. So rough week for pretty much all of us, but I was able to win in the end, even without this last game being decided yet. So Toby won week one. I won this week. Again, if anybody wants to participate, definitely hit either of us up. We'd love to have you guys want to have as many people as possible. We gained 4 people from last week to this week, so that was pretty exciting. So, yeah, definitely room for more. Add in as many guys as possible. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 51. NFL season is here. We are very excited. I can't wait to get to week 2 already. I'm already ready for next Sunday. So, you guys have a great one and tighten up.